All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to a bread bake. That's what we're going to be doing today. So the first step today is to test our starter a little bit. We're going to take a look at that, make sure it's ready to go. Um, I'm using the same starter that I passed out to everybody in the neighborhood, just so you guys could follow along easier than, say, if I were to use my mother here. But these are both looking great. Since we last saw them yesterday, that's grown quite a bit. I think it was, closer to here when we um, made it. So that's looking nice and healthy. To test that and be sure though, I like to do something called a float test. So what we do is just get some water and we're just gonna drop a little bit of that sourdough starter in there to see if it floats. So I'm gonna just get a little dollop of that guy and kind of drop it in. And hopefully you can see that, but that sourdough starter is floating in there pretty nicely. And it's kind of hard to show. But that definitely is floating, so our starter is ready to go. You don't really need to drop a whole lot in there, just a tiny little dollop, and you're ready. So to get going here, first thing we want to do is go ahead and peel off some of our starter. Oh, looks like my family's going to sneak through. Come on through, guys. That's okay. You can say hi on here. Hi. There's my daughter Emily and my wife Maddie. All right. What's that, Dad? We're making some bread. All right. See you guys. Okay, bye. All right. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get my starter going for tomorrow. So same process as yesterday. We're just going to throw a little dollop of starter in there. I'm shooting for about 5 grams, which, yeah, a little less than a teaspoon, I would say. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this aside. We'll get back to that in a minute. First thing we're going to do is now is make our levain. This is really used to, it's kind of a pre-ferment we build, and this is going to go into our dough, and this is what's going to provide the good bacterias and the yeasts to that dough and really help build it into a nice flavorful dough. So to do this, let me get a bowl out here. I'm actually going to do this in a jar. My smaller bowl is dirty right now. We had pancakes this morning. So, all right. So to build this, I'm going to do 30 grams of starter, 30 grams of all-purpose flour, and 30 grams of whole wheat flour. And then we're going to do 60 grams of water. It's the same recipe as your starter, just in bigger portions. We build this a little bigger, so it's if we only add 5 grams of this starter here to your dough, it's not going to be enough of a fermented fermented dough to really get that going. So we need to build it up a little bit and make it bigger. This is something you can do the night before, but I'm going to show you a couple of tricks to get us going today. So we can probably be baking bread by tomorrow morning. I know that sounds like a long process. It is a long process. There are a lot of little steps that we go through. Really, I'd say it's about 30 minutes of hands-on work, and then a lot of downtime between little bits and pieces here and there. So what we're going to do is add 30 grams of flour here. A little too much. Okay. I would say that wasn't quite a full quarter cup if somebody's, you just having the measuring cups at home. Probably 2-3 tablespoons, somewhere in there. I think 4 tablespoons is a quarter cup. So probably 3 tablespoons of each kind of flour. All right, we got those in there. Now we're gonna add 30 grams of the starter. All right, and that is going to use really most of my starter that's left in here, and that's fine. If you don't quite have 30 grams, that's going to be okay. If you have a little bit more, that's going to be okay too. All right, now I'm going to weigh out my water. All right, I got a lot of jars behind me here, thanks to all my neighbors, so we're going to do this. All right. Now that's 60 grams of water is what we're shooting for. So it's your total, basically equal parts flour, equal parts water. So 30, 30, that makes 60, and then 60 grams of water. All right, 58, that's close enough. So we're gonna go ahead and add that to this mixture here. Let's see. All right, now we're going to give that a little bit of a stir. Really, we're just trying to get everything nice and incorporated. We want to make sure all that flour is scraped off the bottom, and all the flour is nice and wet, and then also make sure that starter is mixed in there nice and well. Okay. Daddy. Yes, Emily. Can I help you? Not right now, honey. I'm showing people how to bake. You and I can do a bake one of these days on TV for everybody, but right now Daddy's teaching a class. You can watch, sure. Daddy, is this for people? It is for people, yes. Oh. Yeah. What are you making? I'm making a levain so people can make a bread with it. All right, so all I'm doing here is just cleaning up the sides of my jar, scraping that all down in there. What are the puts in the heel, Dad? Nothing, honey. Nothing. Okay, so there is my levain ready to go. Can you wave? Wave. Wave, good job. There's my levain ready to go. This needs to set aside for about 5 or 6 hours, and then we can get on with the rest of our bake. So like I said, it's a lot of small steps to get us there. I'm gonna go ahead and do a few other things, so I'll stay on here. We can kind of talk through some of the stuff I'm doing to save me time later. But this is really the first step. This you wanna keep in a nice warm area. We're going to keep it at about 75 degrees if we can. Some good places to keep it would be inside of your oven. Obviously, we don't want to turn that on. But if you have a gas oven, the pilot light should keep that nice warm environment. You can turn on the oven light if it's an electric one. That'll warm it up a little bit. If you plan on baking something else today, just set it to the side. It should be okay there. If you have an Instant Pot, that's my favorite place to keep this. I do, so I'm going to go ahead and make use of that. If you do the Instant Pot, do the yogurt setting, and if you do that on its lowest setting, it'll keep it nice and warm. So I'm going to pick up the computer. Instant Pot. I'm not going to worry about getting a lid on there or anything. It should stay nice and moist enough that it's not going to get dried out. If you're putting this really anywhere else, I'd make sure you have a lid on this. Just to keep it a little more moist and it doesn't get that crust on the top. Okay, so we're gonna hit the yogurt setting. It's already there for me, but you just wanna push that adjust button until it shows up. I'm gonna leave it at the 24 hours because I will just set a separate timer to get that going, get that out in time. Okay, so the levain build is ready. So the next thing I'm going to do is come back to my starter and go ahead and refeed this so it's ready to go for tomorrow. So reminder on how we do that real quick. We have 5 grams of the starter in here. We're going to add 25 grams of all-purpose flour. You can do a mix if you want, but I figure most people have all-purpose at home, hopefully. So that's what I'm going to do here, just so we can all be kind of on the same pace as each other. All right, there's 20, 22, 24. We're going to call that good at 24. All right, set that aside so I can get my water portioned out. Okay, 30. I'm not very good at pouring small amounts of water, so I usually over pour and have to pour some off, which is why I do a separate deal from my starter. If I go straight into it, I usually get too much water in there. All right, 23, so pretty good there, about same amount of flour and water. All right, let's see. I set my spoon down somewhere. Maybe Emily grabbed it, no worries. I've got more. All right. Just getting this cleaned up so we can see how it looks a little bit later today. I'm thinking what I'll do is probably get on about 1:30 or so today, and we'll continue with the build on this. So we can try to remember to check the starter as well, see how it's looking and living. I'm going to leave this one out on the counter instead of going into the Instant Pot, since I don't want to speed this up really. Kind of got into it yesterday a little bit. Some of the factors that really influence how fast your starter develops are how wet the starter is, how much water is in it. So more water makes it more active, less water makes it less active. The temperature makes a big difference. So the warmer it is, the more active it is. The cooler it is, the less active it is. So my counter, I figure, is about, my house temperature, which is, 65-ish in the kitchen here. Oven's probably 75, and then the pot probably gets a little warmer than that even. So, all right, set that aside. All right, last thing I'm going to do before we step away here is I am going to go ahead and portion out my flour. I just like to do this ahead of time because I like to do this ahead of time just so that my ingredients, if I have them out, I might as well just do everything at once instead of having to pull them out several times today. If you have a smaller kitchen and don't want to do this now, I totally get that. I've got enough counter space that I can go ahead and get this portioned out. So we are going to do 500 grams worth of flour. I'm going to shoot for about 325 grams of all-purpose flour and about 175 grams of whole wheat flour. I like that ratio. It gives me good flavor that makes me happy. All right, so let's see, 325, a little too much. There we are. Take this up to 500. All right, 500 grams. That's all that's going to do for right now. We're just going to set that aside. Like I said, you can portion it out later if you want to. So about 1:30, we're going to come back, add water to this, and then check in on the leavener and see how it goes from there. So that's all I've got right now. We'll come back in a little while. Like I said, my next video will start about 1:30 and get going on those next steps. So goal by the end of the day today is have a dough that can go into the refrigerator by the end of the day and rise in there, do a slow rise in there, and then get up and bake in the morning. For me, it's a longer process to bake bread this way, but the results are really worthwhile. Like I said, it's not a lot of hands-on time. It's just something you got to check in on throughout the day. And I'll do my best to give you guys all some instruction on how you can build this around your schedule. I have it pretty easy right now. I work in real estate, so I don't have a lot going on kind of around the house and able to do this. For folks that are still going to work, I can help you build this around your schedule, especially if it's like an 8-hour day you're working. If you're working from home, super easy to pop over every once in a while. If you're out of the house for those 8 hours, a little tougher. And for those in the medical world and you're working 12-hour days, I think this is a great way to take a day off and have a day at home when you don't have to be at work. So anyway, that's all I got right now. So